comments?
I'll have one.
Okay.
You know, we're to obey the law of the land.
Yes.
All right, I've always thought about, would we be held responsible for, you know, like if you're running over the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are you going to be held for that in the sight of God?
Well,
You know you are, and you know the speed limit.
well, here's the thing, that's a good question. Benny brings up a good question about, for instance, how we drive. Nobody in here speeds, right? And if you do you go down to the court and do you fork over some money for the fine? No, we don't do that. Speeding is an administrative type of offense. We don't really classify it as a criminal offense. At one time it was, or in some states, if you go over so much, which some states is like 120 plus. Do you all drive like that, 120 plus miles an hour? No, we don't do that. But yes, we're going to be liable, are we not, to obey laws, right? And there are some that we probably, they say, I can't remember the source now, but the average American breaks about 3 to 6 laws, federal laws a day without knowing it. But most of these are administrative in nature, right? When we speak about government, he's being very specific about the wrongdoer, meaning even though we say that speeding is an administrative offense, there's not a moral equivalency to say murder, kidnapping, where the state has every right to execute if they so choose. But lately, our states haven't been doing that. And they let them out, and then people that want safety put bars on their home, and we've got it upside down, right? Where people should be, bad people should be in prison where there's lots of bars, right? And free people should be free and not have to worry about putting bars on their home, right? Good question. Okay? Is it too controversial?
I've always felt it's a matter of authority. It's a matter that the laws were ordained of God, and He said they were for our good. And if we obey them, we don't have to be afraid. And if we disobey them, you ought to be afraid, because they're God's
Yes.
avengers then.
Yes.
Against those who choose to be willingly disobedient. To me, it goes far beyond that. To know and willingly know that this is the law,
Mm-hmm.
and that it does not contradict God's law, and then to willfully disobey it.
Okay.
It's a matter of actually, I think it casts reflection on authority. It just simply says, I will obey if it suits me. If I do not approve of it, then I'll do what I want to do.
Yes.
And really, it's filtered over into the church as well as our government. It doesn't matter really what you do; it's who you are. It's going to make a difference whether you get punished or not. It's true with local government. It's true all the way to our state government and all that. Some get prosecuted severely for a small offense, while others get by with
Yes.
really high offenses, in our opinion. Yet there's favoritism there.
Yes.
But it's still a lack of respect for authority. And if you're in a position of seeking to be a leader, presidential or whatever the area is, you ought to be one known for respecting the law and not for breaking it and finding out how to get by with it.
Okay.
And that's the problem I see so much. To me, it's a matter of just total disrespect for God to start with.
Yes.
I mean, that's where it ought to, for Christians, that's where it counts the most. It's not how many people I can fool in the government,
Right.
and how much I can get by with. It's God sees it all.
Yes. And there's a principle as well here. This is a component part of it, where we, even though it might seem trivial, and even I'm going to agree with you, Benny. There's things that, for instance, are traffic law, that it's a good thing to follow the rules of the road. There's safety with that, and with safety with other people. So the child of God should obey the law so that there's nothing said contrary to God, right? These kinds of things. But I'd also like to discuss just a little bit, and since this has been open, you're right. Government is to punish the wrongdoer. What's going on today with a lot of these foolish laws, a lot of these decrees, which many of them are unconstitutional, are unlawful? For instance, we mention this from time to time. This foolishness about can't figure out what bathroom to go to. So what do we have? We have the administration telling us and giving quote-unquote rights, and if you don't follow this, long story short, that which is good becomes evil, right?
Just look at what's happened in the last few years.
Yes.
That God has been taken out of so many things.
Yes.
And they have another thing up now that would take God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. And how much further are they going to the point that we won't be able to have freedom of religion, freedom of worship?
Joan, that's a good observation. That we have the pendulum is swung in such a way that we do not have freedoms that are guaranteed, and then perversion becomes a freedom that is not mentioned in the Constitution, but that's legally protected.
I mean, like, where are we going? If you're taking God away from everything,
We're going towards communism, fascism, these kinds of systems. You mentioned also, was mentioned about our leaders. If you don't mind me, I'd just like to take a poll very quickly. How many in here think that Hillary Clinton has been maligned by the media, so to speak, and think that Hillary Clinton is a good, solid, moral person without corruption? Can I see any hands? I don't see a one.
How many things think he is? Is it what?
Yes.
Nobody.
No one.
And Trump's the same way. He don't even believe in praying to God, because why should he pray to God? He has everything. He don't need God.
Well, there's some...
And he takes
Yep.
he takes the bread, the wine, but he don't need to pray because he's got everything. He don't need God. That's
Yeah.
that's his words.
Well, he has problems. Both
And
are
if he
flawed.
gets president, he's gonna really need God.
Yeah, you've got that right.
Gee, what do you think Hillary's gonna do? It's already been approved what she is.
Well, we know what he is too.
whether we like it or not, we're gonna have one of them for our president.
Yes.
We have to learn to rely on our senators and our representatives
Yes.
to voice what we feel.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're a sinking ship.
Yes. Well, I don't want to seem too radical, and a lot of times when I'm on the radio, they hit the button if I say things. But there are some things that are evil that both the biblical principles. See, the purpose for government is to do what? Punish evil doing. We might see this in our lifetime, where we cannot give tacit approval or obey things that are evil, and compounded also with our form of government, which is the Constitution. When that's circumvented, we have a lawless president, we have lawless judiciary. This is not binding. Now, a lot of things have been pressed upon us, and we haven't come to the point yet where they are starting to put us in prison or in jails and what have you about not marrying homosexuals and the like and things like this. But that time can come. And what I'm saying is we have to obey the law. What law? God's law.
The other
The
thing
Constitution.
is
Yes.
standing behind our police officers and our,
Yes.
they're there to protect us.
Yes.
We're gonna kill them, eventually we won't have that protection.
And our nation averted from having a federal police department. Who is the highest elected law enforcement officer in the county? The sheriff, correct? And there's reasons for that. Not to have a nationalized police department, because if you do, you could have a president that's lawless and gives lawless commands, correct? That's kind of hard to do when you have so many counties, right? Very important. Very important. See, what I'm saying is our nation, we don't study those kinds of things anymore. We know about popular culture, we know about music, we know about theater, and what have you in our school system. But we don't know about where these laws come from. And we are to obey the Constitution. My argument is, so is the government. They have a responsibility. And if they do not, they become lawless. Very important. Very important.
We've taken away from those people that are in authority, just like teachers aren't allowed to handle the children. They've taken away a lot of things out of school, prayer. the Bible.
Yes.
It makes me sad that we've come to this when the people that drew up our Constitution and set the pathway for us, and we're destroying that.
Yes. And realistically, the Constitution is really a way in which to divide powers and to limit government. And now it's being conglomerated, and Joan brings up a great point, our school system. Wouldn't it be much better if, and sometimes teachers went on the deep end and hurt a child, but that was minuscule. However, when teachers paddled children in the school system and were unruly, our prison system was very small. And in the 60s, they actually were thinking about, in certain states, of closing particular prisons. But lo and behold, when you don't paddle, you don't discipline children, you don't form their minds correctly about authority, where do they learn that? Learn that in prison. Now, prisons, we lock up more people in a free society than any other people's because of faulty parental training, faulty training in schools, and it's both, usually your state and the NEA, these unions for teachers that influence laws and prohibit teachers from using corporal punishment. And likewise, we're seeing and we're paying a terrible price for this. Yes?
I think a lot of that, where they took that away from the teachers for not correcting the kids, that's mostly the parents.
Yes.
Brought all that on.
Yes.
Because they even went to court suing somebody because they whooped their son or they whooped their
Yep.
daughter or something, so they got to do that to keep them going to court.
Well, you know, it gets worse than that, Benny, and that's a good observation, because ultimately, who is responsible for the children? Their family, right? But now think on this for a moment, and especially some of the rulings from the Supreme Court. When you drop your child off, or when he's dropped off or she's dropped off at the doorstep of that school, your rights as a parent end. That's not true. That's not correct. The state is not the father, and this is a big problem with the welfare state. We've switched and destroyed a lot of families in the inner city, and we really didn't care because for the most part they were black folks, right? America. I'm not talking about you and I. Now that's happening today. It's the federal government. And think of the voting bloc and who are they going to vote for. And some of the craziness that's spewed out of Miss Clinton's mouth and Barack Obama's mouth about their view of government. You're going to get people like that they're going to get phones, they're going to get free this, they're going to get free that. Thinking people, reasonable people, are going to vote in such a way that they're going to respect our Constitution, love freedom, be productive citizens, and obey the law. Very important. A lot at stake here. A lot at stake. So yes, we do have a responsibility to obey the government. In our system of government, government has the responsibility to obey the law. And they've become lawless. And this is a big problem. This is a reason why if you're a dairy farmer and you go to the state of Tennessee, you're from Alabama, and you try to sell raw milk, they're going to put you in prison. Isn't that something? Who'd ever thought of that? My. I used to go on horseback and buy raw milk from my neighbor up the road. We made our own butter and such. Well, they put him in prison now. They put him in jail. Just as much if he was selling cocaine or marijuana or something. See, we come to a point where it's inverted. That which is evil becomes good, and that which is good becomes evil. And this is where we're at.
Remember when I was a little girl,
Yes.
at Flat Rock, we had a chain gang. They had
Mm-hmm.
a camp there.
Yes, chain
And all
gangs.
these prisoners,
Mm-hmm.
and they built our roads, and they worked. And you put some of these in there that's sitting there watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
come out here and chain them together and let them work. They might not be back in there.
You know, that's a capital idea, Joan, is going back. That chain gang was therapeutic because some folks had meanness, some folks had a habit of addiction, and you know there's something about a sledgehammer, a rock, and a whole lot of sweating going on that people kind of think, you know, maybe I'm going down the wrong road. Hello. But yet, if a state wants to do that, who is going to say that they can't do that?
They stopped it here was when that, a guy got this woman up at Stevenson and took her in the woods and killed her. She's
Oh.
pregnant. He killed her. That's when they quit working on the roads.
Oh, that's sad.
Within the last 10 years, Alabama tried it again.
And who said they couldn't do it?
The federal government said, no, you can. It's inhumane treatment of prisoners. Federal government stepped in and said, you can't do it. Alabama had to quit. We were doing it. You know, did you know Sheriff Joe out in good old Colorado, I guess it is, it's known for being so tough, the sheriff.
Oh, that's in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona,
Yeah.
Maricopa County.
Yep.
And he's known for putting them in tents out
Mm-hmm.
in the,
Mm-hmm.
desert area. They've got him now. Matter of fact, the federal judge has already indicted him on, as far as Hispanics,
Mm-hmm.
immigration violations,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got him on so many counts in federal court that he's gonna probably be prosecuted. So anybody who tries
Yep.
to do any real thing to keep the way things are supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's gonna bring them down. It's just.
Well, the federal government's going to do that, Jim, but there is a movement in our country with Article 5 that limits powers of the federal government. Brethren, if that doesn't work, I want to make a suggestion and just a thought that maybe some states need to have secession because, non-violently, of course, but when we talk about criminals, the best thing to do, why should they dig deep in our pocket to have a jail or a prison by the auspices of the federal government where people should learn to obey the law, sweat it out, which would be good for them, and have power locally close by. If a sheriff becomes tyrannical, we can just vote him out. That's not a problem. But you can't vote out the Supreme Court. And you can't have a Marxist president or a man that claims to be president with Marxist ideology, and he is going to put in constitutional types of justices. And then the purview of them doing things that have nothing to do with their power, or they don't even have constitutional power. Very important.
They become the legislative branch though now. And that's why in this election, one of the two candidates, whichever one becomes president, gets to choose that ninth justice. And that's gonna change things not only for the next 4 or 8 years, but for the next 40 years or so. And that is important. It's probably the greatest decision that'll be made.
Yes.
There'll be a lot of bad things that'll
Yes.
come out of it, but that's gonna be the most critical for the next 40 years, if we exist.
Well, Jim,
Roy and
go ahead.
Moore, they keep, every time he tries to do something good, they keep giving him his job. He's up again. They're gonna, what is it for this time he was against?
Oh, yeah, he fought against this, issuing licenses to
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
same-sex marriage. He instructed probate judges
Mhm.
in Alabama, you don't issue, I don't want you to do that.
That's good.
And so now he's, matter of fact, I think he's probably impeached, or they're gonna try him, he's
Yep.
gonna try.
Just like
Yep.
he did with the Ten Commandments first.
You see, one thing is people say that the Supreme Court's the final arbiter. Not so.
Not supposed to be.
Not so. Because Congress and others can determine how many justices there are.
Right.
This president, if we have a good Congress, we could add 3. The president could put them in, appoint them for a period of 1 year each. Things could change. But you notice a lot with those that are in government, as I said, it used to be the Republicans who were the conservatives. Not so much. They sound very much, they like a globalist view. When we talk about NAFTA, WTO, now the PPT, these are all trade unions that are trying to destroy the middle class. They're importing people in, destroying the middle class. The middle class is destroying itself through alcohol, through gambling, through pornography, and these kinds of venues. And we are in the fight of our lives. Very important.
I guess you know you're in the wet neighborhood now.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You know, I've been in so many that were dry and went to alcohol. But think on it for a moment. When do all these problems arise? When we have liquor, when we have those kinds of things that are evil and protected by law, and then those things that are good and that we're to participate in, they become illegal. And that's exactly what happens to a nation. We need to do things about this. Very important. Any other comments, questions, or observations?
Well, you don't get to vote on the lottery, so don't get excited. That's, well, for the most part, it's off the table. They're still trying to find a loophole.
For now.
Yeah, they're trying to find a loophole to get, they call it a simple lottery. I don't know what the difference between a simple and a complex is, but Earl Bentley said they didn't vote against me. They voted against 2 million young children who are going to need Medicaid, not going to have it. Said they didn't vote against me when I asked them to start, let's approve the possibility of a lottery in November going on the
Yes.
ballot. Well, the people didn't vote against him.
That's
Because
right.
he brought it, it was the kids that got to suffer.
Well, Jim, it's worse than that. Obamacare, the Affordable
Oh, man.
Care Act, and every time the government mentions affordable or if there's freedom, the opposite is true. They're trying to destroy our health care system so that it's a single payer system like up in Canada and other places. They're trying to destroy the middle class because the middle class are the people that build a nation, that work, that have the intellectual trust. And when you can destroy that and bring people in that all they want are handouts, you can perpetuate government, but it becomes a third world country. And this is exactly what they're trying to do. I hope I'm not saying anything offensive to anyone, but this is the truth of the matter. And these are the kinds of things we need to talk about. And when I turn on the television, I listen to some of these buffoons on Meet the Press, Sunday morning, and they talk about things that have nothing to do with the truth. But what do? They purport, and they don't like. And I'm not on board with Mr. Trump. don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to say who to vote for. That's your business. But brethren, this is where we're at. And it's going to get worse. And if we don't stop it here, I pray that this country does not fall into a revolution. I do not wish that at all. Very important indeed. These people will not tolerate tyranny. Free people will not. Very sad indeed. Well, on that note, again, ultimately, if it's ordained by God, God can see the bigger picture where I cannot, where you cannot. But we have responsibilities towards God, towards His people, and towards others. Very important. Appreciate very much the kind and accurate observations.